What is going on, guys? Jack here, and welcome to ForTheFans for the 19th of October 2015. Following the international break, the Premier League was back in action. It was a basketball game as Newcastle met Norwich. We'll be talking about Klopp's first game in charge. Sherwood's team lost to Chelsea. There was plenty of goals, so let's get into the show.
Hello there, listeners. Welcome back then, episode 9 of ForTheFans show for this week. As ever, Jack and Callum are with me. Boys, how are we?
Not too bad,
Very good, thank you.
Good. Well, we've had an interesting couple of weeks. We've been off international football. Jack's not a fan. Keno doesn't mind it. But now we're back as a trio. And I'm quite impartial on the international front, actually. But Keno, you're a fan, aren't you? Yeah.
I do like it, yeah. I like it, especially now. Now it's made the smaller teams so more incentivised to play.
Yeah,
I am quite a big fan of the new setup.
I've no doubt we'll be talking about it like next year more. And Jack, you're not a big fan of it as of right now.
It's all this qualifying. Like, just play a knockout tournament to decide the. Actually, don't do that. That's a terrible idea. I just don't like the way it breaks up the season, I guess.
Okay.
I don't like
the fact it's in the way.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Just bung it in the summer. I mean, they do that anyway. Do a World Cup with every team in the world in it. That'd be a real World Cup. That'd
be awful. So then, based on the fact we've not done a Euro special or anything, I thought this week's feature would rightly be Euro themed. Now, I'm going to level with the viewers. We tried this yesterday. Keno had internet issues. Jack had a horrific performance, but it will not affect today's feature.
Let's not even speak about my performance. Like, I might just blow up the tape of that recording.
So, the feature, ladies and gentlemen, is that I'm going to quiz the boys on the squads from international tournaments gone by, more namely the European Championships. Now, because of our error yesterday, we do have to change things very slightly, and they're both aware of what the feature is. Luckily for me, their research skills are limited, so they've not gone and checked the potential
didn't
answers.
Have the squad lists for teams of the tournament. So
unlucky.
I tried.
You didn't try hard enough. So, what we've got is the last 4 international tournaments. And Keno, because of yesterday, we're actually going to start with you. And your first tournament is Austria and Switzerland from 2008. You get 90 seconds on the clock to dictate. Now, how old were you during the 2008 World Cup, or Euros, or whatever it was?
13, 14?
13 or 14.
That's when you guys first started talking, is it not?
No, I was still in prison at that point, talking to underage children. No, just a joke, folks. Not a real life situation. So, Callum, 90 seconds on the clock. You have to name as many players from the team of the tournament from Euro 2008. Your time. Are you ready? Actually, firstly.
Yeah. Ready.
All right. Your time starts now.
Okay, so I'm going to go just name the Spain team to begin with. So, David Villa.
Correct.
Fernando Torres.
Correct.
Sergio Ramos.
Incorrect.
Capdevila.
Incorrect.
Casillas.
Dramatic music.
Casillas is correct. 3.
Casillas is correct. Midfielders. Xavi.
Correct.
Did Iniesta score? Iniesta has a habit of scoring big goals. Did he?
I'll
he
give
in
you
the
that.
team?
Iniesta, yeah,
okay.
Sure.
Not someone like Marcos Senna, is it? Because I think it was just before.
Correct.
Busquets. Oh,
good
there you
grief.
go. How many is that, Ben?
That's 6.
They played Germany. Philip Lahm.
That is correct.
It's not looking good for me.
30 seconds left, Callum.
Sorry, too soon.
Jens Lehmann.
Incorrect.
I don't know.
Let me tell his name.
Thinking German gone.
Come on.
I can't think of anybody else really.
Well, you've still got 15 seconds. So go.
Closer.
Incorrect.
German players from 2008. Schweinsteiger.
Incorrect. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There you are. Answers you could have had on the plate. I think you got 7 actually.
How big is the squad that you have to pick
23.
from?
That one was. Buffon, Casillas, Van der Sar, Bosingwa was in it. Pepe, Puyol, Zirkov, Altintop, Modric, to name a few. Schneider, Arshavin was in it. Pavlyuchenko was in it, as well as a few others. You mentioned German midfielders. Michael Ballack was in it. Michael Ballack.
Can I just something, because I feel like we somewhat ridiculed Kino for suggesting Jens Lehmann. I did last night say Fabian Barthez.
You also said Patrick Vieira, so that was...
I was the wrong decade.
That was an experience. Now, Jack, I've now prearranged the ones you're both going to get. The first one we're going to go for you is, and we're going to try and start you off on a good foot here, Jack, is 2012, okay?
Oh, blimey. Can I just thrash out names here as fast as I can?
Of course. 90 seconds on the clock.
How many players are there?
23.
Okay.
Start now.
Ronaldo.
Correct.
Gerrard?
Correct.
No, it can't be Lampard.
Lampard.
Terry?
No.
Fernando Torres?
No.
Sergio Ramos?
Yes.
Puyol?
No.
He might have retired by then. Xavi?
Correct.
Iniesta?
Correct.
Pedro?
No.
David Villa?
No.
Might have just been past it then. Let's move on to another nation. Ballack.
No.
Lahm.
Yes, but you're going through Kino's list. No.
Hummels.
No.
Boateng.
No.
Closer.
No.
Schweinsteiger.
No.
Podolski.
No.
Was Lewandowski there?
Lewandowski.
No.
He was there, but he's not in.
It's better than saying their South American name, isn't it?
30 seconds, Jack.
Puyol. Pirlo.
Yes.
Surely has to be.
Gattuso. That's a bit past it, isn't it? Chiellini.
No.
Buffon.
Correct.
Casillas.
Correct.
Courtois. Czech, maybe?
No.
Courtois. Joe Hart.
18. No.
Oh, blimey. Rooney.
10 seconds. No.
France. Valbuena.
This is awful. No, incorrect. This is 2-1 end.
End it now.
Deary me. I will say there was no French players in it at all. When
I was barking up the wrong tree there.
You could have had Neuer, Jack. You heard of him?
Oh, that geezer.
Piqué, Contral, again, Pepe was in there. Daniel De Rossi, Khedira, Ozil, you could have said. Xabi Alonso. Balotelli was in it, scored that great goal. Zlatan was in it. And Fabregas and Silva were in it as forwards. It was the tournament where Spain didn't play strikers. Do you remember that?
How many did I get? That's what matters.
You got 9. So 2 less than Callum.
Could be worse.
But we have a second round now, boys. So we'll start with Callum Keane, who's trailing. Callum, this is going to be tough for you. The year is 2000. How old were you then?
5.
Brilliant. It was Belgium and Holland. What I will say, Kino, is because you're only 5, go familiar names from the era back then, and you'll do fine. Okay.
Did France?
That's going to help you out. Your time, Callum.
Hold on. Can you tell me who won the tournament? It was
France won it.
Outrageous.
France did win it though. Jack, come on. He was 5. Right.
I don't care if he was 5. I want to win.
Child, Jack.
Yes, I would.
To a 5-year-old child. Time starts now.
Christophe Dugarry.
Incorrect, but I love to hear his name.
Zidane.
Correct.
Vieira.
Correct.
Petit.
Deschamps. No.
Deschamps.
No, neither.
Yuri Djorkaeff.
No. Think big names, Callum. Don't just think France. I'm helping you there. You were 5.
Oliver Kahn.
Sure. No, he wasn't there.
This is. Who played for him?
My 5-year-old could do better than this.
Steven Gerrard?
No. So far, you're level with Jack with 50 seconds to go. You've got to name more names. Italy, Germany.
Did you say Gerrard?
Italy, Buffon again. Fucking
no.
Buffon.
It was before Buffon.
Raul? No, too early.
Correct. Point.
Oh, okay.
Think sort of managers of the time. Think people that are well known.
I'm not sure.
When I was 5, I had a France 98 Sabutio set, and I could
20 seconds, Callum.
I could probably do 2004 a bit better. I can't do this.
All right, well, Jack's prepared for that one in a moment.
Oh, I'm sure he is. I'm blanking. Lilian Thuram?
5. Correct. 3, 2, 1. When I tell you this list, you're going to be so upset with yourself. When you hear this, Callum Keane, you're going to be absolutely devastated. Are you ready? Toldo, Barthez, Blanc, Desailly, Nesta, Cannavaro, Maldini, De Boer, Figo, Rui Costa, Davids, Pep Guardiola, Thierry Henry, Patrick Kluivert, Nuno Gomez, Francesco Totti, Slavo Milosevic.
Nuno Gomez.
You had it all. You had it in the palm of your hands. In some ways,
I think that's easier than 2008.
Yeah, it kind of is.
You probably could have named all the legends on FIFA and got more points than you got in the previous round.
Callum Keane, your final score for that round is 11.
It's a bit like Mastermind, this, isn't it?
I've got a team.
11. Not bad. You've got a team. Yeah. Lots of Spaniards in it. Right then, 2004, Jack, is your is the final one.
It was Greece.
Greece won it. Yeah, they did win it.
Oh, fucking hell, that's going to be tricky.
Your time starts now.
Samaras.
Incorrect. the only Greek player we do, everyone.
Ronaldo.
The only Greek player we do, and he was yes.
Pepe.
No. I'm starting to think this quiz was the worst idea ever. No.
Danny.
No.
Gerrard.
No.
Lampard.
Correct.
Barthez.
Incorrect.
Maldini. Was Maldini retired by then, surely?
Gone.
He's 37.
No, he was still playing because he played against Liverpool the year after in the final.
Buffon.
No.
Oliver Kahn.
No.
Who was a goalkeeper back then? David Seaman.
You've got 2. No.
How many do I need?
I think you're level right now.
Oh, Zidane. No, Zidane retired.
Yeah, Zidane's correct.
Zidane's correct. Right, can I celebrate for the remaining time?
I don't know if you are level. I'd keep going if I were you.
Henri.
Incorrect. I will say, Jack, you've got 30 seconds. You're level at this point.
Oh
Want to win it. 25 seconds.
Perlo.
Incorrect.
De Boer. I'm just going to name
20 seconds.
The previous
20
tournament.
seconds.
Oh, gosh. Perlo.
You said Perlo twice. Come on, Jack.
He might become correct.
10 seconds, Jack.
David Villa.
No.
Balak.
No. Yes, actually, Balak.
Yes! I've done it.
I've done it. He gets it. This is the worst.
Saved by the Balak.
I just wanted to make it interesting.
This is the worst. I thought this would be the best quiz or feature we've ever done. I'm disappointed in you both.
When faced with like a huge pool of players, it's harder to pick people than you think, actually.
I'm just glad none of us named like a South American. That would have been embarrassing.
Petr Cech, Nico Polides, Ashley Cole, Sol Campbell, Ricardo Carvalho was the defender you were trying to think of from Portugal. Olaf Melberg, Zambrotta was there. A couple of Greek names that I wouldn't remember.
Great
Luis
name.
Figo, Pavel Nedved, a few others. Milan Barros had a very good tournament. Henrik Larsson, Jon Dahl Tomasson, Ruud van Nistelrooy, and Wayne Rooney was also there.
I was going to say Wayne Rooney as well.
Can I just provide a extended thanks to Samaras for getting me the win?
Right, well he didn't.
This is for you, buddy.
He was wrong.
Oh.
Okay, but you got 12, so well done. That's the end of this week's feature. Bloody hell.
Quiz.
No, how dare you. On to the... I thought the feature would be the highlight of everyone's week. I feel like we've pained our way through 30 minutes of that. There was some Premier League football, gentlemen, and well, I guess before we get there, we'll talk very briefly. Dear Brendan, as far as me and Jack at least are concerned, we'll hear from you potentially later. Jurgen Klopp, Jack, is in as Liverpool manager. I think we're both very pleased.
I don't think you could get a better man for the job. And apparently they offered the job to Ancelotti and he turned it down, but I'm kind of glad we've got Klopp.
I'm very pleased you've mentioned that. Ancelotti was quoted today. The reason you're saying that is because of Harold Redknapp, who very bravely said, "Oh no, I've heard from a source they approached Ancelotti." Ancelotti came out today and said there was no contact. So
I think Harry Redknapp's just bitter, isn't he? He's like the man in the middle. At high school you'd have the person who no one liked, who kind of just bitched about everyone and made up shit.
He's been going on about Liverpool a lot in that column recently, saying about how it was the worst Liverpool team he'd seen in years and stuff.
Well, I think since Harry Redknapp didn't get the England job when the media basically appointed him, he's just been very resentful to the footballing world. And I think that's just sort of continuing now.
I agree.
But on Klopp, I as if you've heard from me in the last 2 weeks anywhere else on social media, you'll know that I can't believe we've got away with this, because we don't really deserve Klopp at this point in time. We literally don't deserve him, but he's here. And everything he said is making my mouth water, Jack. And I think
I was about to say that. Like, he's saying all the things you want to hear. I just hope he can kind of prove it on the pitch. I feel like there is some pressure on him. And I don't want to say, like, Klopp is unproven. I think that would be unfair. But
and not true.
It'd be fair to say that he's not, he's not done a variety of jobs and kind of, held the fort at a different kind of... compare him to Ancelotti, for example, who's been at a number of clubs around Europe. Klopp's been a lot more settled in that kind of.
It should be said
extent.
though. It should be said it's very rare that you do actually find a manager that's got a Van Gaal-esque CV of winning titles in multiple countries.
Oh, of course.
If Barcelona or Real Madrid lost their managers next week, Klopp would be on the interviewee list, and I think that's like the biggest sort of compliment you can pay him.
Yeah,
and also to give an idea of like the fantastic appointment that it is.
I should point out I have every bit of faith in him. I just feel like the way that some people are approaching this, it's like it can't go wrong. Like, it's impossible that Klopp doesn't do well at Liverpool, whereas, I don't know, I feel like I'm a little bit more reserved.
I think it's an expectation thing. Sorry, Keane. I think it's an expectation thing that Klopp's... Well, Liverpool's expectation is to finish in the top four, where actually I think Klopp's expectation is... Although he won't say this, and when he said title, people are getting a bit confused. Apparently what he actually means is a trophy, because in Germany he would say title, that could be the FA Cup, that could be whatever. I think Klopp thinks he is the man to get a league title out of this Liverpool side. Maybe not this Liverpool side, but his Liverpool side. And I think the expectation of the club and the fans is kind of, top four will be good. And there's that sort of crying in the background that goes, come on, let's win the league. And I think Klopp thinks... just watch and see. And I feel very much I'm in that watch and see moment right now. And everything he does, I'm just kind of like, I watch Liverpool now with a bit of a smile on my face, because I think we're in control of this situation. And even if it doesn't look like we are, I feel like we're in control of the situation. And under Rodgers, I didn't feel in control of the situation at all as a fan. And that seems quite a strange metric, but I have a lot more trust in Jurgen Klopp than I did Brendan Rodgers. And I like Brendan Rodgers.
I just want to enjoy watching Liverpool play. I don't feel like I've enjoyed watching Liverpool really for the last 8 months. I feel like it's always been... I don't know, there's always been this like voice in the back of my head, just like... It's just a bit... I guess... I don't know if that becomes because of the fact Liverpool finished second that season, but it's just not been very entertaining football, and it's just been very subpar.
But did you enjoy the 0-0? I think we'll start with it, because it was a 0-0.
Well, I was going to say, like, I feel like we could have talked for a whole show about Klopp if Liverpool go out there and win or lose. But the fact it's 0-0, I feel like it doesn't really answer that many questions. I guess maybe it proves Liverpool's defensive credentials. But you said, did I enjoy the game? I feel like for the first... I don't know, perhaps half an hour, 20 minutes, I enjoyed it. It looked fresh, it looked exciting, it looked energetic. It did kind of slow down, and to be fair, Liverpool were very lucky not to concede towards the end of the first half. But as far as 0-0s go, I think I'm kind of happy with it. I think we looked... I don't want to say we looked solid defensively, but we didn't concede. And that doesn't happen that often if you're a Liverpool football club.
Saka was very good, I thought. I thought Mignolet had his best game for Liverpool.
Mignolet was very good, yeah.
He was very good. I think Mignolet gets a lot of stick, actually, for being this unreliable keeper. Actually, I think this season he's been one of our better players, weirdly enough. So, yeah, instead of Tottenham, I think they'll be a little bit disappointed. But I think both teams had quite a lot of players out. Or Tottenham had 2 or 3, Liverpool had 3 or 4. I think Liverpool will be pleased. I think Klopp will be relatively pleased. I think there's a lot more... You can build off a 0-0. It's a lot more difficult to build off sort of a scrappy 1-0 either way, actually. I think off a 0-0 you can kind of tweak it enough that the next game against Ruben Kazan this week, he'll know what he wants from the players, and they'll know equally as much. You could see, actually, as Klopp walked off the pitch with Lucas was talking about something to do with the in-game management, I assume, and Klopp was like nodding, and they were like nodding to each other like, oh, so that's what you mean. Oh, I get it. That's what we're going to do next time, etc. And that's kind of... I don't think anyone really spoke about that, but it was something I picked up on, and it made me quite excited.
Would you be concerned, though, bearing in mind that he missed this game, and in future that Daniel Sturridge was reportedly came in on Friday with an injury at training, and he's got another niggle again?
I'm more concerned about Danny Ings.
Well, obviously he and Joe Gomez are out, but with Sturridge, I think I think that he is for me at least, he is the most interesting player in the Klopp arrival. People talk about Lovren and Benteke and all these players that have been brought in by Brendan Rodgers and haven't quite worked. Daniel Sturridge is one that has worked and we've seen the best out of, and there aren't many Liverpool players in this side that Brendan Rodgers got the absolute best out of. I think one should probably mention Jordan Henderson, Daniel Sturridge, glimpses of Coutinho. And it's going to be fascinating to see how he uses Daniel Sturridge, because with Benteke, in the way Klopp plays, doesn't play with two strikers. And you can't assume that Benteke is going to play in a wide position. You can, of course, see Daniel Sturridge doing that. And it was something he didn't like at Chelsea.
Will he go out there for Klopp? Because obviously one of the main reasons that he left Chelsea was that he didn't want to play out wide. And that was under Mourinho as well for a little bit, wasn't it? So,
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see whether Klopp can talk him round to maybe playing as the right striker at the front three.
In the same way Aubameyang did. I think that's how you've got to kind of associate the two teams. But yeah, go on, Jack.
I just wanted to say something controversial, really. You mentioned the fact that you thought that Brendan Rodgers got the best out of players like Coutinho and Sturridge. I think the person who got the most out of them was Suarez. And it pains me to say that. I don't want to say, okay, here's the thing, when Liverpool finished second, I don't actually think Brendan Rodgers can take that much credit. Because when you've got players like Sturridge, Sterling and Suarez going forward, you're going to get goals no matter how you tell them to play. Whereas the thing that actually lost Liverpool the title really was their defence, which is something you very much can manage. And I don't want to be controversial here, but I've had faith in Brendan. To do okay, I guess, but I never believed he was the man to take Liverpool to a title. Even when we were right at the top of the table, there was still part of me that with the goals we conceded, I guess I'm an eternal pessimist, really.
I believed he could towards the end of that season, or midway through that season. I thought, he's the right fit here, and he fits. And I think it was ever since ironically enough, it was ever since we beat Tottenham 3-0 last season, and Balotelli, Sturridge, and Sterling played. From that game onwards, I felt like he lost whatever it was. And it was, obviously Sturridge got injured on international duty, and that was kind of the downfall from there. And I think from that point, you did lose faith with Rodgers. But I think if you're going to blame Rodgers for having not as good players and performing substandardly, you also have to give him credit for where Liverpool... You've got to give him enough credit for when Liverpool finished second. Of course, Luis Suarez was great, but Sterling, at the beginning of that season, wasn't a world beater. He wasn't a £50 million player. And Brendan Rodgers ended up selling him for that. So,
no,
yeah, I think you've got to give him credit, but
I just don't think he was necessarily the person who made Sterling that player. I think Sterling
maybe
always
not,
had
but
that talent.
I think he has as much influence as you said, Luis Suarez. I think he has as much influence, if not a little bit more, than Suarez. Of course, on the pitch it's slightly different, but the football isn't just played on the pitch; it's played in your head, and it's played off the pitch as well. Hence,
could you not argue though that Sterling's man management wasn't the best by Rodgers? To an extent, the
media have you portray they fell out, but if you listen to Sterling, he speaks very highly of Brendan Rodgers, and I think Brendan Rodgers is fully responsible for the hat-trick that Raheem Sterling scored this week against Bournemouth.
I want to issue an apology to the viewers, because they probably saw Liverpool get a goal astray and thought, thank God for that, they're not going to talk about it for 10 minutes on the show. We've opened with that after the feature, and I apologise.
I think we've had 2 weeks of Klopp mania, and now, at least from my point of view, it's going to calm down a bit now. And I can't see myself talking about the Klopp mania stuff as often. But City, 5-1, and Raheem Sterling got a hat-trick, and it's the first time, really, that he's looked like the £50 million player that City bought Callum Keane.
I actually think that he's looked like the £50 million player since he arrived, because the way in which he's just slotted into the team, and no one's really talking about his performances, and he's just ticking along over nicely, looking at the same levels as Silva and Agüero and De Bruyne. He's slotted right in there perfectly, and although he hasn't done anything incredible until today, well, until this weekend, he's just been purring along. And there's been no particularly bad performances. There's been no media sort of frenzy about how he's not performed. And I think, if anything, that is the biggest sort of positive that you have to give to Sterling, that he's just slotted into a world-class team. And because he's performing so consistently, when he does have standout games like this, in the same way that Agüero or Silva does, everyone will talk about it, and talk about it highly. And I think that is the biggest estimate of his class, that he's just slotted straight in.
It's interesting you mention Silva and Agüero. Now, I know they're playing Bournemouth, But a lot of talk is that if you don't have Agüero and Silva in your team, this City team don't tick. And Bournemouth are spoken about quite highly. I mean, you look at their squad, you can see exactly why they've lost 5-1. You look at their starting 11. But on the flip side of that, Boney's come in and got 2. Sterling's got a hat-trick. De Bruyne, you mentioned how Sterling's fitted in. De Bruyne's a young man himself and has come into that City team, Jack, and looks like one of the best players in the Premier League, I would say. I dare say it this early.
He has looked great, and he does raise questions, I guess, over Mourinho at Chelsea. I don't want to always mention Mourinho.
Every week.
You have to look at how he's done so far, and he's just slotted into that team, and he looks like a Premier League player. And it just makes you wonder why wasn't he given the chance. I think both himself and Sterling, obviously, I think there was £99 million spent for both of them, roughly. Like for £100 million, you want fireworks. So with Agüero and Silva out of the team, like you have to expect them, for that price, to be players who can make the difference still.
Yeah,
and they did that this game.
Could you see De Bruyne being the player to not effectively replace David Silva, but to take City to that sort of that next step? There's obviously a lot of talk about the fact they don't win the Champions League.
Yeah,
do you think De Bruyne is that kind of guy?
I think the signings of him and Sterling, who I think will become that world-class player on that same level, actually. I think those 2 signings will be, maybe not this year, could be under a different manager next year, but it will be what tips them over the edge, like you say, onto that high-level Champions League super club type level every year. It's the fact that they've been searching for that for 3 years, and it's taken 100 million on 2 players to get it. But I think those 2 signings are what will just give them that extra little bit of quality that they need to really perform on the highest level.
I think it's interesting because Silva's got the joint most amount of assists, I think, this season with Ozil, but De Bruyne's got a slightly different string to his bow. I think the way he plays is a little bit more direct. It's not as sort of keep the ball. It's a bit more let's get a goal, and I think
both him and Sterling
like that.
Both him and Sterling offer that slightly different element that allows them to play on the break, which is actually quite crucial on those away matches in Europe. It allows them to just play that slightly different way while they still retain a lot of the quality that you do expect of a player like Silva when they need to break a team down. It just gives them that extra dimension that could make all the difference, in the Champions League.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that Kompany didn't feature at the weekend either. And City was still able to put in a relatively good performance. Jack, anything you want to quickly say on City or Bournemouth?
I was going to say, did either of you guys actually watch this game?
I saw the highlights, but I didn't see the whole thing.
I watched it live, and I was surprised by how Sterling played, because he actually played ahead of Boney for a lot of the game. Like, he played... After the game, Pellegrini said, he's not a striker. And I think most people would agree that Sterling doesn't really have the ability right now, like in his raw finishing potential, I guess, to bury chances that come his way like a striker. But I found it quite interesting how he very much played ahead of Boney, and their plan was, I think it was Boney said, if he told Sterling in the week, if I jump, you've got to run on ahead of me because I'm going to flick it on for you. Yeah. And I think that could be quite an interesting dynamic to see, especially with Agüero out now for a few weeks. Will Sterling be deployed as this kind of secondary striker in a lot of ways and a slight different approach in their style? Because to be fair to City, I don't want to say they don't have quality up front. But the difference between an Agüero and a Wilfred Boney, like Boney is not as complete as Agüero, and I think he's the kind of player who probably does need someone playing off him to suit him and to kind of play off, whereas Agüero is very much a player who, he can just make things happen seemingly when he's just not got a pass on and he's in the middle of no man's land with the ball. I
think the side that, I'm going to say the side Pellegrini's put together, I'm not sure how much of a say he actually has in it, but it's certainly a side that you could see maybe not doing that well in Europe this year because of their reputation. I mean, there's nothing to stop them. It just seems unlikely. But they certainly seem to have that sort of front 5, front 6 that is now interchangeable. We talk about this team, we talk about the players that are out. When they come back in, the options Pellegrini's going to have, the different systems he can play. I think that was a criticism of them last year, that they had one way of playing, and if it didn't work, like there wasn't a secondary way of playing. And now this season, with the dynamic of De Bruyne and Sterling playing that little bit quicker, that little bit more direct, you've got Boney that you can play off. I think it'll suit them a lot, and I think it'll be a good season for City. I think at the start of the year, a lot of people tipped Chelsea, and City kind of went under the radar. I think people even had Arsenal and United above City, but at this point, you probably change your mind slightly. I think they're going to have a good year. Show me one team. Go on, Kina.
I will just say a word on Bournemouth. many people would have backed Bournemouth to stay up at the beginning of this year, but and kind of since we touched on it a little bit 2 weeks ago, but because of the international break, we've missed some of it. They have been decimated by injuries to key first team players. They lost obviously Callum Wilson, Max Gradle, Tyrone Mings, and they lost Tommy Elphick as well, who's their centre back captain.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
A very big character, and all of those are long-term injuries. And if it gets, and even if they come back, just after Christmas, that's still a lot of games missed. And if you're adrift at Christmas or you're not playing well, it's difficult to recover that form. So while the whole squad, if you looked at it on paper, might have been good enough to keep them up, I worry for them, particularly before January, until Howe can make some changes. I worry for how they'll be able to cope in these very busy months coming up to January.
Yeah, they've got a home game against Tottenham next week, and I think that will be...
It's not going to get any easier.
Well, they play Tottenham, then they play Liverpool away in the Cup, which is here or there, really. Then they play Southampton away, which will be very interesting, a bit more of a local derby. And then the big game, really, is on November the 7th, which I'm sure we'll talk about Bournemouth a lot more. It will be against Newcastle. At that point, Newcastle could be in some hot form. Speaking of Newcastle, I'm all about the links today, folks. Newcastle finally won a match, and boy, did they win one, Jack.
They did. This was, for me, my favourite game of the weekend, and I think Alex Neil summed it up best when he said it was like watching a basketball match. Because neither team really cared. They were just going for it. To be fair, I feel like the result somewhat flatters Newcastle. I think Wijnaldum got 4. But it is worth noting that in this game, Newcastle had 6 shots on target, and they all went in. It was one of those.
That's amazing.
It was one of those.
Not know that.
It was one of those games where it was just like every chance went in, and it was. I don't even feel like Ruddy made a mistake. I don't feel like you can blame the goalkeeper.
His decision making is questionable. I think there's a couple there. The first one is it's either the first or the last one. I can't remember now. It's a Wijnaldum header anyway, and he kind of throws himself at it in a desperate sort of way. If he was to make a noise, he would have gone like that, and it wasn't good. I don't think there's a reason he's not currently in the England squad, and I don't think it's necessarily because he's newly promoted. I just don't think he's quite got that level of concentration, and I know he conceded 6. I mean, there's been 6 shots on target. He's not made a save, Jack. He's conceded 6 and not made a save. It's not great.
My favourite part of this game was...
Mark Lawrence had actually... Sorry, go on, Jack.
I was going to say, my favourite part of this game was at 5-2 down, Jerome comes on, and the commentators there going, they're going to make the comeback now. Norwich. I'm sat there thinking, you've got 6 minutes to score 3 for a draw, and you're talking about them going and trying to win this.
But Wijnaldum, it's interesting on that side of the coin, because he's obviously come from the Dutch league, very high reputation. He's not the first player to come from the Eredivisie and not perform. But this game, he's put those doubts to rest. 4 in a game. And Newcastle going forward, Keno, aren't actually that bad.
Well, yeah, I mean, considering what we've seen from Newcastle this season already, we should probably take it with a little bit of sort of caution. I think actually, just to quickly touch on Norwich with regards to, because it relates back to Newcastle going forward, Norwich are really, really open and poor, and Alex Neil can come out and say it was like a basketball match all he likes, but at the end of the day, away at St James's Park, he didn't have to make it like that. He could easily have stopped it from being the case. They could have kept it, within 1 goal if they wanted to. And he knows also, as you say, Newcastle have got a lot of talented attacking players. And McLaren doesn't really have to do much to get them to play because they have a lot of quality. Wijnaldum, Mitrovic, they and obviously Sissoko, who I think is actually the X factor in this team. When he gets Sissoko to play, and I know it's difficult because there's question marks over his attitude and where his best position is, but when he gets Sissoko to play, they look great going forward. And with that in mind, I was confused by why Norwich set up so openly, and if they keep doing that, they will struggle as well for the rest of the year.
See, I think Norwich were just a little bit overconfident, and I think it's harsh on Norwich, the result. I don't think it really reflected the game. Norwich did hit the woodwork, I think, twice at least. Like, it was very much a game where it could have finished 6-2 to Norwich, to be honest.
I don't think Norwich expected Newcastle to be that good.
I was kind of
hoping.
Norwich looked a little bit overconfident, almost a little, I don't want to say complacent, because I'm sure they were aware of Newcastle's threat. But a lot of the Newcastle goals were just breakaways, really. It was like watching basketball where Norwich would overplay the ball, give it away, and then be just, caught out at the back. And they don't have the fastest defence, Norwich.
No, exactly. And that is down to Alex Neil, which is why his comments after the match were puzzling. It was as though he couldn't work out what had happened. And yeah, I do like him. I think he's done, obviously, Norwich play very attractive football, and it's you've got to respect him for that. But in the Premier League, especially this season, as form is so erratic right now, it just doesn't seem like anything's going to the way people are predicting. You've got to be a little bit more pragmatic, I think, in those kind of matches. So the buck stops with Neil for this result, I think.
To be fair, he did come out after the game and say, I made a mistake, because he took off Alexander Tettey, who really is Norwich's rock in the midfield, and brought on Wesley Hoolahan, I think, in the 60th minute at like 4-2.
There you go.
And it was, I mean, that was like what through the. It was like you could just see suddenly Norwich not have any balance to them. I feel Tettey is actually one of their vital players, the Norwegian international. I think he scored 2 goals over the international break, so he can score too.
And one against Italy, I believe.
He has a few injury issues himself, and I don't know if that was a fitness thing for taking him off, because it just seems like a bit of an odd one to bring Hoolahan on for him.
I think Norwich missed Malumbu. It's not really spoken about too much, but he was their sort of one of their more exciting transfers. They didn't do too much, but he was obviously a free from West Brom. And I think the ideal situation for Alex Neil in that situation, firstly, you're not 4 goals down, essentially. And then you bring on a player like Malumbu for Tettey, or you'd start Malumbu and Tettey, maybe. I don't know, because Graham Dorrans came off as well. Should we move on to the next game? Happy to?
Let's do it. Where are we going now?
Well, we're going to Stamford Bridge, Callum. Are you going to be okay with that?
I mean, yes.
Any
fine.
words?
Let's do
words
it.
for Sherwood?
Well, no, I don't want to hear about Timmy. I want to know if you've got a message for any other managers that might be out there, Callum.
Well, do you want to do Chelsea first, and I'll save my dear Brendan? Chelsea just backed. Chelsea
Dear
back
Brendan,
to normal.
please go to Chelsea.
All right, sure. Chelsea were. It wasn't emphatic, was it? I mean,
Again, it's difficult to say.
Match.
It's difficult to say that could be a 2-0 routine Stamford Bridge back to the old ways kind of thing, or it could be that the Villa were shit, which I would probably say it was the latter.
Why not both?
Well, yeah, it could be both. Why can't it be both, Keno?
Yes.
No answers for that.
Willian had a good performance. He's been doing well recently. Costa was, as if I said, a bit more like his old self.
You mentioned Willian. Willian has actually been probably their best player this season, and obviously the big news was that Hazard was dropped, and I think that kind of reflects the difference in their form this year. Willian has actually been performing pretty well throughout the entire year, and we already know that his effort levels are incredibly high, and that's one of the reasons why Mourinho likes him. Obviously, I'm not a big fan of the result. But it just kind of the fact that he scored sort of reflected or set up the goal. Sorry for Costa. Sort of reflects how he's been playing actually in this sort of very strange period.
Yeah,
my favourite.
Go on.
I was going to say my favourite part of this game wasn't actually the game itself. It was the fact that Chelsea fans, when the squad was announced, started like thanking the Lord that Ivanovic wasn't even on the bench.
Yeah,
well, he picks up an injury for Serbia.
I was going to say, is that what kept him out? Actually,
yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I mean, that's that is a blessing. Like,
well,
I don't care
Mourinho
what
might
you say.
realise now that he's not the right man for this particular job.
He's not the right man for Chelsea at this point. I'm sorry to say, he's past it. I've said it too many times, so I'm not even going to go there again. But he's the player who every week I'm looking out for. I feel like it's a bit of a roller coaster of Ivanovic's season so far.
Yeah. Keno, Brad Guzan is a questionable individual.
It's a funny one, Guzan, because at times he looks great, and he's quite actually commanding in his box, which is quite rare for a keeper nowadays. Everyone talks about shot stoppers. Guzan, when he's on form and he's feeling confident, he can actually command the box in a way that you don't normally see keepers in the Premier League do, and he can get down to shots. But he does have the tendency, and he sort of seems very quite hyperactive in a kind of Tim Howard American way, to sort of do silly things. Like, this has already happened once this year. It could have been the Leicester game, I think, or when he threw it out to Amavi really early, and in the similar way that he did to Lescott, and it led directly to a goal. And so while he does have attributes, I think it sort of reflects the whole kind of malaise that the club are under at the moment, actually.
Yeah, well, Lescott didn't look very happy about it. It's fair to say. He was like, "Oh, don't do that. You've done that. Oh, why did you do that?" That was his arm reaction from the whole thing.
Can I just say, bringing up goalkeepers, I can't remember who the commentator was on BT Sport, but it was during the Tottenham-Liverpool game, and they were suggesting that the future of football would be about only getting a sweeper keeper. So what you'll do is you'll find your players, in your academy who are outfielders.
It was Glenn Hoddle.
Was it Glenn Hoddle? Basically, the bottom line, if anyone didn't see this, he was suggesting that players that fail as outfield players in academies should be tried to play in goal, because that's the future of football. A goalkeeper who can kick the ball around and doesn't need shot stopping, that can be taught.
We're not talking about the Euros so much, but the guy that was a keeper for Northern Ireland scored, didn't he, with his shoulder?
He did.
So there you are. Maybe Glenn Hoddle's got a point, Jack. That's what I'm getting at. Maybe Glenn Hoddle has got a point.
Never has a point. It was ridiculous. I can't believe the co-commentator didn't pull him up on it, to be honest.
Well, it was Michael Owen and
he doesn't have opinions, does he?
And Fletch. Is it Darren Fletcher?
Fletch
from Fletch and South. Yeah, Fletch and South, by the way, is
tragic.
I mean, Soccer AM, I'm not a fan of. I'll be honest with you now. I'll level with you, because as Ellie, my girlfriend, sums it up. I had it on one day after a heavy night, and she came in and she went, "What's this?" I went, "Soccer AM." She went, "What do they just go, football?" So every time she sees Soccer AM, she just goes, "Football," and like raises her fist in kind of a, like you down the pub
laddish
kind of
manner.
And whereas Fletch and Sav is like, because of the way they sit, it's like a parents' evening. It's not a comfortable watch. I don't enjoy it very much. I'm sorry, Fletch and Sav, if you ever come on the show. Maybe I'm potentially going to retract this, and if BT are wanting a new slot for 3 hours on a Saturday morning,
I'm available.
Fans are available. Well, for the fans, I think we could do that job.
I could.
Okay.
With Fletch.
You could be Fletch.
I'm back.
I can do the
do you want me to do Dear Brendan?
Do Dear Brendan.
Go for it.
So, Brendan, as you know, I know you're out of work at the moment, but you only need to look down the road. If you're still in Liverpool, just look down the road to what's happening in Birmingham to know that you're needed. And David Moyes is looming on the horizon. Tim Sherwood's in trouble. He's returning from Spain. I don't want him to. I don't want him to come to Birmingham, to the Villa. I need you, Brendan, because you are what can get the best out of the squad that we have spent fucking millions of pounds on this summer.
What happens if Moyes? Sorry to interrupt, dear Brendan, very briefly, but what happens if Moyes comes in?
Well, this is the thing, like, because I just lagged out, guys, just to let you know. That's what people are saying at the moment. Obviously, you shouldn't really take losing at Chelsea too much, but Sherwood's in trouble, and if he loses the next couple of matches, then I think he will be gone. As we're bottom of the form table as well at the moment. And yeah, Moyes is not doing well at Sociedad either at the moment. They're not doing very well. He's been there almost a year.
6 points from 8.
Exactly. And it's almost as bad as Sherwood. It's actually a little bit better, so it might be an improvement.
Maybe he's the man. Maybe he's the man to change it.
But yeah, it worries me. It worries me what they might do. And it's obvious that a change of style is needed. We've been sort of persevering with the sort of Scottish English contingent, apart from a brief stint of Gerard Houllier. We've been continuing with that for 10 years, and it's not working. And he might be a little bit cheaper than Rodgers, but with the TV money coming in next year, I think it's a gamble that the board should be making, and I think actually Sherwood should go.
I want Rudolf Melberg to get the job.
He's saying it. Villa fan Callum Keane wants Sherwood out. It's official.
And it's not because I don't think he could be a good manager in the future, and I like him as a person. I know that's controversial, but he seems like a fairly honest guy, actually, which is quite rare in football management.
Could that be his undoing? Is he too open?
I think it could be, but the thing is, I think he's been dropped in the shit, basically, with the Villa, because the problems that are here run a lot deeper. And while we've made some changes, we've made a lot of changes over the summer. I think that it's this season more than any other season, you want to stay in the Premier League. I think it's the most crucial year for any club that might be thinking of relegation. It's the most crucial year in probably the Premier League's history because of the money that's coming in next year. And if you go down, you drop out, you lose massive amounts of revenue, and the gap will grow. And for a team like the Villa, who have never been relegated, we're not one of the biggest net losers in the league in terms of our expenditure, and we don't have the biggest budget, it would be a massive, massive blow to be relegated this year. And the way it's looked so far this season, it's like Sherwood can't handle the responsibility and the players that he's got at his disposal. And so while I do actually think that he's a good guy, and what he did last season, he kept us in the league. He gave us it was one of the best days of being a Villa fan that I can remember, and probably the last 5 or 6 years.
Losing
at
3-0
Wembley
to Arsenal.
to play, just quickly though, to play devil's advocate, David Moyes has had the challenge of, he's on occasion having to keep Everton in the Premier League.
I was thinking about...
Rodgers has never had that. Rodgers has never been fighting for that kind of thing before.
I was thinking about that earlier, actually, and I did think that Moyes has never been relegated, and while Everton did have their bad seasons, on the whole, they were fairly consistent. But I just think that it's playing to the kind of the glass ceiling idea that everyone has now. And what would be the really ballsy progressive move would be to go for Rodgers and say, right, we're not worried about relegation. We want you to develop the team.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the squad, we arguably have a better squad than many of the teams around us, which is what's the most annoying thing to see, these players sort of not being used in the right way. People may scoff at me for that, because of the perception over the last few years that we've not been very good. But we spend a lot of money on the team, and I'm certain that a manager using methods that someone like Koeman or Gary Monk was using could get us into the top half of the table. That's the most frustrating. That's the most frustrating thing as a Villa fan, to see that.
Well, speaking of a team in the Midlands that are doing quite
I miss
well,
optimistic Keno at the start of the season, finishing top half. Going to be surprise package. That changed.
I had my football chat with Ben. I was convinced by that speech he gave me on that podcast. That was outrageous.
And in a way, I know you want to move on, and I've sort of done a monologue on the Villa.
You bring me down.
You've done your yearly allocation here, just so you're aware.
I know, but it looks like he's the next big manager to go, next favourite. So we probably should touch on it. But
big manager, my
God.
There's been a lot of changes, and it's not got better.
Okay, well, Leicester came back again. Have Leicester only lost one game this season? Or is it 2 now?
It's something ridiculous. Like, I don't know how they're doing it.
I should check it. Carry on.
I love Ranieri. Did you see Ranieri post-match? He's just very lovable. He's just like, I've got a lovely bunch of players. They've got great spirit. I'm like sat there thinking, I can't actually imagine him giving a team talk. There's been talking about how he hypes up his players with different music. I like to believe he's got an iPod with music for every single situation at half-time. And he just knows which song to play.
He does a bit of samba with Wes Morgan before each game. Bit of that. I don't know why that's come to mind. But one of the key aspects to why Leicester are doing so well, and we'll talk about him sort of playing for England as well, Jamie Vardy gets another brace. How good is Jamie? I guess it's quite a vague question, this, and I'll throw it to the pair of you. How good is Jamie Vardy?
Has 12 finishing in Football Manager.
But who does he rank next to in terms of other Premier League strikers? And I'm not just talking about the goals he scored.
This is I don't want to shit on him.
I feel like you're about to. Prepare yourself, Leicester fans.
There's part of me that wonders, is he just the benefit of what is a very strong Leicester side and he's the outlet?
See,
he works hard, don't get me wrong, he works hard and he finishes chances that come his way. But in recent years, there's been a few Premier League players who maybe they've not had quite the goal-scoring record he's got at the moment. I think it's 8 goals in 9. So you've got players like Ricky Lambert at Southampton, you've got players like Grant Holt at Norwich, and yes, they're very different styles of players, but they're players who, they're not what you'd normally consider traditionally a Premier League, double-figure goal scorer every season, but they somehow do it at a smaller team.
This is my thing about Leicester, actually.
I don't want to pigeonhole him with that, but I mean, I want to say he's going to be amazing and he's going to score 20 at for England in the Euros, which is impossible, but it could happen. It's Jamie Vardy, you never know. But I just don't know if he has that class.
Well, this is sort of, going about. It's all about perception with Leicester, and they're they're kind of annoying me, actually, because
they are.
They're what you want Villa to be.
Points. Yeah, Vardy's got as many goals as your team. That'd be annoying me too.
But for I actually really like Jamie Vardy, and I think, but I don't know if Leicester, because they keep coming from behind, and they're having to shovel themselves out of games through individual moments, very, very frequently, 4 or 5 times already this season. I can't make up my mind if they're any good or not. They've obviously got a lot of character, and they've obviously got quality.
You're Rodgers already. You're in his mindset. Go on, carry on.
But the fact that they keep having to do this, I'm not sure if it's Ranieri. Obviously, he can motivate them.
It's his iPod.
Part of me thinks, and this happened at like Stoke as well, like teams that aren't that good. Part of me
DJ
thinks
Ranieri.
Part of me thinks like, why are they getting into that position? And also, because they could go and control the game with the players that they have and how well they're playing. They should be going out to control games against teams like Stoke who aren't playing well. And just quickly on Vardy, if he looked and walked and talked like a Spanish striker, like Roberto Soldado, say if he looked like Roberto Soldado and he was doing that, everyone would be going crazy about how good he is.
Yeah, they'd be linked with Barca and Real already.
And I think it's almost like a subconscious thing that everyone knows he's an ex-non-leaguer and he's playing for an unfashionable team. The way he plays is not like a Ricky Lambert. He's quite mobile, he's dynamic.
He's very mobile. He's not quite mobile, but he's very mobile.
Yeah, exactly, and he plays in a sort of more continental style, I want to say.
I don't necessarily agree with that. I think he benefits so hugely from Mahrez just being perhaps the midfielder of the season so far.
Well, Mahrez played last week, but he didn't play the week before that, and he still scored, so I don't know.
But he did get he got an assist again today. And did Leicester lose their last game? I feel like they didn't do that well last game when Mahrez wasn't there.
They beat Norwich, I think. They beat Norwich.
They did, you're right, he was on the bench.
I think the thing with Jamie Vardy is that he it's kind of his just rewards. He works so hard for his team that he gets rewarded with goals. This is his best season he's ever had so far, at least 9 goals, 9 appearances. At Fleetwood, by the way, I didn't know this about Jamie Vardy. He got 31 in 36 in one season at Fleetwood. He's only been playing sort of professional football for 6 seasons. This is his sixth season in professional football. Started in the Conference North, got 3 and 4 for Halifax. The same season, in fact. Then went to Fleetwood, got 31 and 36. Then got 4 and 26 in the Championship. Obviously had to adapt to a massive step up. Then 16 and 37 in the year they got promoted. 5 and 34 last year in the Premier League. Does that surprise you a little bit? I know they played with Agüer up front as sort of their lead man, but I'm surprised to read that. So this season he's been great, and if he carries on, he will definitely be in the England squad.
I guess my worry is he's going to have an amazing season with Leicester. He narrowly misses out in England. He gets a transfer to kind of a Tottenham, and then he just doesn't play enough to get any goals, and he becomes, one of those strikers who kind of just labelled as, I guess, one-season wonders and players that peaked. I don't
think he'll get a move, by the way. He's 28. I don't think he'll get a move.
This is what I was about to say, actually. He's quite a unique case in the fact that a lot of players, I'm thinking about Lambert and Grant Holt, really, who have done similar things to what he's doing at the moment, were kind of in their 30s when they were doing it. Whereas I think, although he's late 20s, I think he still has time to go to a big club for 2 or 3 years.
Do you think so? Because I think makes the point of Leicester being quite unfashionable. I think Jamie Vardy is like the antithesis of that. He is quite an unfashionable player, but effective. And I think England, I mean, I know Keano said it before, they could do with more effective players and less fashionable players in many respects to get the job done. So I think if he carries on like this, not only should he go to where is it, France this year or next year? I think he has to go with England on that plane. But he won't start. That's the problem. He's one of these players that will be an impact substitute because of the players that Roy Hodgson's got to his disposal, and Wayne Rooney is undroppable. We
could, as we've been on the Premier League for a little while now, we could work in one of the Twitter questions actually regarding England. This is from Finchy, Dan_Finchy at ForTheFans show. Who would be your surprise call-ups for England Euros if there was any? There may not be, because Hodgson has got a lot of time to look at his squad. But who do you think might sneak in?
I think Joe Gomez might do a bit of a John Flanagan.
What do you mean?
I think he might get, so Flanagan went to England's pre-World Cup USA training thing, then was dropped from the squad, wasn't he, for the actual World Cup?
Gomez is out for the year, you fool.
Oh, of course he is. Sorry, I'm forgetting about the Liverpool injuries. I'm so sad. There's too many Liverpool injuries.
It's like the feature all over again.
I want to say Danny Ings. I know he's injured. Can I just say Danny?
Do you want to say Austin as well?
Charlie Austin, going to get a move to the Toon in January. Scored, I'll say, 12 goals in the second half of the season. and gets a call up for England.
Nah, Charlie Austin will be at the Villa in January.
I feel like we should do a
Not
sweepstake. If you want to tweet us with your prediction for where Charlie Austin will be, let us know. Because, I mean, QPR are mid-table. He's got 6 months left on his deal.
If you're a listener, you don't have to do that if you want. That's just tweet Jack.
Tweet me. I want to know what people think of Austin. But I do think he might move to the Premier League with 6 months left on his contract, and QPR in mid-table.
Yeah, 7 and 8 million. You could see Big Sam getting him in at Sunderland.
I don't think that is for you, Jack. That's quite a realistic shout.
Okay, even though I don't think Charlie Austin will be on the plane come the summer, but
He'll be in the helicopter late arrival.
Jamie Vardy will be, and I think if you'd have said that at the start of the season, you'd gone, that's mental. So I think he is the one, isn't he? If we're going to talk about anyone, let's flick through some of the other games a little bit quicker. Manchester United had a very impressive win against away at Everton. Everton obviously had a relatively good draw against Liverpool, which got Brendan Rodgers sacked, but then crumbled against what was a very effective Manchester United side, which we sort of lamented last week or 2 weeks ago for playing pretty terribly against Arsenal, setting up completely wrong. But this game was a different story. Herrera was brilliant, I would say. I dare say it.
It was almost it was like the ideal Louis van Gaal game, because
it was. That's a very good. Yeah, I see what you mean by that as well. Go on.
And because people do have quite a dig at Van Gaal for playing quite sterile football, and I don't think he's like a defensive manager, but this Everton game was the perfect example of how, when it works, Van Gaal football works really well. Because Smalling was again excellent. He played really well. They looked very solid. De Gea did make one really, really good save in the second half when he got down quickly. But apart from that, he wasn't really tested too much. And they just took their chances and picked Everton off, which I think that was the plan at Arsenal. But they kind of got blitzed in the first 20. And they tried that plan again at Everton, and it worked great, because Everton had been playing very well, but they were poor on Saturday, I thought.
But a lot of credit to Van Gaal. It's often difficult to turn it around
definitely.
after sort of although it happened quite quickly in that first half, it was quite a stunning defeat to Arsenal, because it was so effective by them. But Van Gaal's had 2 weeks, and much like Mourinho, has turned it around and got himself a win. Arsenal, on the other hand, they march on, doing very, very well. Jack?
I feel so bad for Watford in this game. Watford looked great for the first 60 minutes, and then I feel like they got to 60 minutes holding it at 0-0, and then there was a moment where all the players realised, hang on a minute, we're playing Arsenal.
I feel like you see that all the time.
I was about to say that, because I felt like this game, more than any other, and it was like a deja vu moment, and I was watching it sort of hoping that my fantasy football captain Alexis Sanchez would get in on the action. But I just felt like eventually, at some point in this match, Arsenal are going to realise that they are the top 4 team visiting a newly promoted club. And at some point, and you see it happen so much, in the last third of the game, something will happen, something will go wrong for Watford, and they'll just nick one, and the commentator will kind of be sort of expectant, and then it will kind of end in a bit of a sort of, not a riot, but a rout, sorry.
But Watford will put so much in to get to the point at 60 that as soon as Arsenal score, it's like, that was what we were trying to stop all game. And then they have to push forward, obviously, trying to get that goal back, and Arsenal do what Arsenal do and pick them off.
It was a very formulaic result, and that is actually what Arsenal need. Arsenal need more of those in a year, in the same way that Chelsea did when they won the title. Yeah. They need more of those kind of matches to give them a better shot at winning the title.
Yeah, although we kind of both said it was almost inevitable that was going to happen, it's interesting that Watford are the sort of team that Arsenal, as you kind of say, in the past would have got a point. I remember Swansea doing it a couple of years ago, sort of game that Arsenal can't break it down. But players like Alexis Sanchez literally are the difference, because he's, as I've said before, he's very good. Very quickly, as also, I slammed Wenger a few weeks ago, saying that there's a way Arsenal should be playing football, and he isn't allowing them to play that, or he's deciding not to play that way. Did it against United, and he did it against Watford, and it's working. And that way essentially is using your players to the best of their abilities, playing Walcott, which I think is key to it. He's using these quick players to get themselves in a position where it doesn't have to be a goal scored based on solely possession, that they can play another way, they can adapt to playing a different way. And I think the team that Wenger's putting out at the moment a lot of pace in that side, especially with Walcott, Sanchez. You've got Bellerin on one side. Monreal gets forward a lot. He's not the quickest, but he gets forward a lot. And I think it's really beneficial to how Arsenal play now.
I think Ramsey made a big difference as well in this game.
Yeah, Ramsey as well is another good one. And also looks really good in a team like that because he's allowed to float more, and because everyone is buzzing around him so much, like they would have done at Real Madrid. He picks his moments and finds space better than a lot of players do in world football. So yeah, I think it's going to be interesting how Arsenal get on this week against Bayern Munich, because I think they're going to go from this game with quite a lot of confidence. And I genuinely think that the front four, be it Ramsey, Ozil, Sanchez and Walcott, could provide Bayern with a few problems. Bayern, as good as Bayern are, and they've got a flawless record in Germany, they do not like it up them, as you'd say. They are not a team that like having so much pressure on them. And obviously the joys of Pep's Bayern is they're very good at stopping that from happening. It'll be interesting to see if Arsenal, with the players they've got, can impact on that that Bayern team. Sorry.
Can I just say, Watford never won a game in October in the Premier League.
Wow.
10 times they've tried.
Jack. I feel like
that is based on maybe 3 seasons worth of players.
Still 10 games. 10 games.
It's still quite a lot of games, isn't it? Though didn't Martin O'Neill have a problem with a month? I feel like you might know because he would have done it at Villa.
I don't.
He wasn't very good in April or something like that.
I'm trying to block him out of my thoughts.
It doesn't exist. That's a deleted chapter from the Villa history.
He could be the new. If he wasn't having so much success with Ireland, he might be the new Villa manager. You never know. You'd love that, Keno, wouldn't you? In a word?
He's flabbergasted. Should I just give you another stat? I'm giving you another stat. You're going to get treated here. Troy Deeney, most shots so far this season without a goal. 23.
I feel like a Liverpool player usually holds that down, so I'm a bit disappointed in many ways. Jack, shall we talk a little bit about newly appointed Sam Allardyce? He's gone in at Sunderland there, and West Brom, well, Berahino, more importantly, has scored a controversial goal.
He was in my fantasy football team on the bench. I cursed him when he scored because I was playing Martial and Lukaku ahead. I was hoping that the Everton-Man United game was going to be the basketball game of the week. It wasn't. Right. But this goal... Now, if you've not seen this goal, just go and find it, because the goal could have been disallowed for 3 reasons, and it wasn't. Berahino has fouled the goalkeeper by jumping into him. He's then fouled the keeper by using his hand... Well, not fouled the goalkeeper, but he's used his hand to then knock the ball into the path of his feet. The keeper has then jumped on the ball with 2 hands on it, pinned it to the ground, and then Berahino's backheeled it out of his hands and scored a tap-in from a yard. Like, if you've not seen it, it might seem hard to imagine that's possible for those 3 things to happen in one goal.
Do you not think it was a Pantilimon error?
I mean, you could argue it's an error, but I think Berahino has fouled him by jumping into the man. Because he has, as much as he's jumped for the ball, he's not jumped to meet the ball in the air, he's jumped to get himself between the ball and Pantilimon, which I think 9 times out of 10 is called as a free kick in favour of the goalkeeper. And I think sometimes you argue goalkeepers get too much protection. And to an extent, I can understand why the foul wasn't given and the handball wasn't given. But Pantilimon did have 2 hands on the ball as well.
All right. But I thought it was 6 of one and half a dozen.
I feel like if he scores and he's in my fantasy football starting over, I'm going, it was never a penalty. It was never a free kick. Perfectly
I feel like you've got an
goal.
agenda here, Jack, and I'm glad you're open to it. Allardyce, do we think he'll keep Sunderland up? He's one of the better mans for the job.
I don't think anyone can keep them up. I feel like, can I just say, every year Sunderland stay up. I don't know what witchcraft they have up north. I don't know what you're doing up there. Do you think it was the same as Wigan,
when Wigan would do it, and then eventually Wigan went down?
A bit like that, but I feel like Sunderland somehow do it and they still change their manager every year. Like, I don't know, what do they tell the managers when they take over?
Can I ask you a serious question, Keno?
Lagged out.
All right, no, I won't. It was going to be, Jack. Do you think Keno would have taken Allardyce? Keno's having internet issues, folks. If you're wondering what the hell's going on, I think occasionally Keno has an internet issue. Do you think Keno would take Sam Allardyce at Villa?
See, I quite like Sam Allardyce, and I think Keno does too. I think there was one point where Keno was backing him for the England job, but then he lost every game in a row.
He didn't win in 7 games. Yeah, it was great. So at West Ham last season.
If he comes back having lagged out, because we were meant to record the show yesterday, which is why this is going up on Monday.
let's just talk about it. We can't hear us.
This is a test to see if he watched it.
Oh, he's back.
He's back, ladies and gentlemen. Excellent stuff. Would you take Sam Allardyce at Villa?
Right. I can just about hear you, so I will do a little monologue about Sam Allardyce.
Brilliant.
Yes. No, of course I wouldn't fucking take Sam Allardyce at the Villa.
Oh,
I swear at one point he wanted him for England, and then he lost. Yeah, and then he lost 7 games in a row.
My argument about Sam Allardyce for England, which subsequently ended in him being jinxed for the rest of the year, was that I think he would pick people less on reputation and
he
more
would pick Vardy
instead on
That's
form, and be a little bit more pragmatic in the way that they played, and that might get England results. But Sam Allardyce for Sunderland, I think. He's a great Premier League manager, and what he's done over the past sort of 10, 15 years is incredible, actually, because people forget what he did at Bolton. I think he might have met his match in this season with Sunderland.
Who knew Sunderland would defeat Sam Allardyce? But there
I think Big Sam from Dudley, by me, has met his match, and I'm worried he might be in the Championship next year.
With Villa. What a pity. The biggest shock result of the weekend was that West Ham went away from home against a side that aren't considered a top 4 team and won a match, everyone. Although Palace have been doing quite well, you might expect Palace to win that, and then West Ham steal it. Well, no, I don't want to say steal it, that sounds a bit harsh. But won 3-1, 2 late goals from Lanzini and Dimitri Payet. Kept him in the fantasy team, still doing a job. I've not really got many points to say.
Okay, so here at For The Fans, we are big fans of the one and only Alan Pardew.
We're not. No, sorry, Jack. I hate to butt in there. I'm not a fan of Alan Pardew. I'm a fan of Alan Pardew sort of antics.
Okay,
so I'm not actually a fan of Alan Pardew.
Well, that's the same difference, really, for the point of what I was about to say. But basically, I don't know if you saw the Dwight Gale sending off, but it's 2 striker tackles that he doesn't need to make. He catches the players late twice. Gets 2 yellows and is off in the first half. Somehow Pardew's come out after the game and gone, that ruined the game, it shouldn't have been a red card. If you look at the body language of all the Palace players, they look away from the incident as he makes the second foul in disgust because they know what's coming. Gale doesn't try and claim innocence. He goes on social media afterwards and goes, yeah, I was pretty crap today.
Yeah.
But Pardew is adamant at the end of the game. He sat there, thumping his hand down in his... I don't know where we're going with this, but basically he's getting very angry. He's doing lots of hand gestures. Jesus. And I just lost a bit of respect for him.
What, it's taken till now? What about when he headbutted a player?
I can get behind. I can enjoy that.
Okay, well...
when he's not your manager, I feel like you can just get behind that. I feel like you can just applaud it.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'll say that much. We've got a few viewer questions. Shall we? I feel like we've covered a few. This podcast has been a little bit longer.
Is there any games that we missed? I feel like if we've missed one of your games, including the Monday night game, which is happening as we record this, I'm sorry.
Do you want an update on that game?
Let's get a live one.
Bojan scored a penalty after 4 minutes. It's almost half time in that. Just behind the scenes there, everyone. You can tell what time we're recording this week. Callum's back. How you doing, Callum?
Yes.
We're doing viewer questions. You've come back for the exciting bit.
We're doing some viewer questions. Fire a couple at us if you've got them.
Oh, yeah, I do have them to hand. I mean, we've touched on a lot of it already. Didn't have too many, but we've got one from Simon Hughes, number 2 on Twitter. Can Arsenal keep performing consistently and beat City and United to the title? So I think this sort of goes to a slightly bigger point that we didn't mention in this segment, as whether you think that they can win a trophy this year that isn't the FA Cup.
We are really talking about the title then.
What other trophies, unless you're going to claim they're going to win the Champions League or Europa League by finishing third in their group?
Acceptable.
I don't think they will, but not for want of trying. I think they might be the closest this year than they have been for a few years. But we mentioned the strings to City's bow, Sterling and De Bruyne and whoever else. I think when Agüero comes back as well, Company will be back in that side, David Silva. I don't think they've got enough for City. Like there, I've commented on about 5 or 6 players who are fantastic players on their own. I didn't even mention Yaya Toure. Whereas Arsenal have got 2 or 3 that fall into that category. And generally speaking, Chelsea being the exception this year, the best players win the Premier League more often than not. I think City have got the best players.
I think Arsenal's title challenge comes down to how fit they can keep their key players. I think Ramsey being back is a massive player for them, and I think they've missed him a lot.
Apart from Sanchez, I'm assuming we think Sanchez is their most important.
Yeah.
Who is the next most important player?
I think you look at players like I know Walcott's a bit of a cliche answer and perhaps a red herring, but I think he has become important in how they play of late. He's been one of the players certainly getting the goals for them. I think you look at other players.
It's interesting you say that though, because Giroud has got the second most amount of goals in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Behind only Agüer-who, I think.
I would say Coquelin's very important for them. We're looking further back. We've not already mentioned their defence. Coquelin's very important because they've not already got another player like him. I know Arteta can play there.
That's true.
And also, I think Koscielny, you talk about contribution over the last 3 seasons, Koscielny's probably been their most consistent performer at the back and in sort of the defensive areas for the last 4 or 5 years maybe. And he's improved massively since when he first joined Arsenal. And I think the pace that he brings and sort of the kind of the front foot defending that Mertesacker can't do, what he brings to that team is very important for the way that they're playing at the moment.
There's quite a nice balance to Arsenal right now, and I think he's certainly part of that.
Bellerin actually has created the most chances of anyone in the league. He's really sort of hit form. It's quite impressive to watch him. In
a word, Jack, will Arsenal win the league?
No.
Will they come top 2?
Possibly. That's one word.
Yes or no? Kino, will Arsenal win the league?
I don't think they'll win the league, but I think they'll finish second.
Wow. I think they will... I think they might finish second as well then. I dare say it. Do you both think that City will win the league?
I think Chelsea could still win it.
I think it's difficult to disagree. It's weird, isn't it? Is that all the questions, Kino? Have we got any others? I think that's kind of...
Yes, because we've kind of touched on a lot of them during the show, and I used one at that point, so yeah.
Thank you for your questions, though, and that's Twitter at ForTheFans Show. We ask before every recording. We're also on iTunes, itunes.com, and then search For The Fans Show in the little search bar, and you'll find us. youtube.com/ForTheFans Show as well. I should say, for anyone that's listening to this point, we are on iTunes slightly quicker, sometimes 24 hours quicker than we're on YouTube. It just takes a little bit longer to sort out a video than it does the audio. Anything else you'd like to say, gentlemen? That almost brings us to the end.
Just thank you for watching. Glad there's no international break for another month, and bring on next week.
Brilliant. So from me, Dr. Benji FN, Ben Carr, from Jack, Work the Space, Jack Peachman, and from Kino at Callum Keane, we'll see you again soon. With love, with care. Goodbye.